All right, all right, all right, all right, all right, all right, all right. What's up, everybody? All my people in Manhattan, the Bronx, Queens, all the way out to Staten Island, my home borough, Brooklyn. Back out with another video, and today marks the 35th anniversary of the release of GoodFellas, one of the absolute greatest gangster films of all time, one of the greatest films of all time ever made, period. It is an absolute masterpiece. Of course, it was directed by the legendary Martin Scorsese, one of his many masterpieces. We have a great performance from the legendary actor Robert De Niro, as usual. Also great performances from the late Ray Liotta, Joe Pesci, who ended up winning the Oscar for this role, Paul Sorvino, and Lorraine Bracco. Absolutely incredible film. No complaints. No complaints whatsoever. If you've never seen it before, you're missing out. I highly recommend go check out this film right now. It's amazing. One of my favorite films of all time. Like I said, one of the greatest gangster films of all time. Matter of fact, the AFI, the American Film Institution, ranked it as the second greatest gangster film of all time, right behind The Godfather and right ahead of The Godfather Part 2. I saw one outlet that ranked it as the greatest movie of all time, period. I don't know if I agree with that, but it's definitely in the conversation. The top 10, top 15, one of the absolute greatest films ever made. The great performances from all of the main cast, and of course, great direction from Mr. Martin Scorsese. As usual, I'm going to go over my favorite scenes from the movie. Some of these scenes are some of the most iconic scenes and lines in cinematic history. Of course, all you don't know, the film is based on the rise and fall of real-life gangster Henry Hill and his time associated with the Keys crime family from 1955 to 1980. The film opens up with Ray Liotta, a.k.a. Henry Hill, Robert De Niro, a.k.a. Jimmy Conway, and Tommy DeVito, a.k.a. Joe Pesci. Joe Pesci playing Tommy DeVito, and they're in the car, and they hear a thudding noise. They pull over to investigate what it is. After they solve the problem, we hear Ray Liotta utter these famous words: "As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster." And we flash back to 1955, East New York, Brooklyn, with a teenage Henry Hill, who's the son of an Irishman and a Sicilian mother. You know, he spends his day, instead of going to school, he ditches school to go hang out at this restaurant where all the mobsters hang. And Ray Liotta narrating said, being a gangster is better than being president of the United States in his neighborhood. Of course, he looks up to Paulie Cicero, played by the late Paul Sorvino, based off of real life gangster Paulie Vario. Paulie becomes like some kind of a father figure to him because his real life father he beats Henry. And once he finds out Henry's been in school for months, he beats him mercilessly, even gives him a black eye. And Henry tells the guys he can't make deliveries anymore. What do you mean you can't make deliveries anymore? You're gonna fuck everything up. My father said he'd kill me. Look. And then I'm handling the situation by kidnapping the mailman and threatening the mailman. If any letters from that school go to that kid's house and there's a fucking up, you're going to go head first. And that solves the problem. And Henry's able to continue to serve drinks and park the cars for these mobsters. That's right, 12, 13 years old, parking cars. Later on, when Henry's serving the guys drinks, he's introduced to Jimmy Conway, played by Robert De Niro, based off of real-life gangster Jimmy Burke. And Jimmy takes a liking to Henry, gives him a 20, tries to take him under his wing. He also takes under the wing another teenager, Tommy DeVito, who's based off of real-life gangster Tommy DeSimone, who was a fucking lunatic in real life, as he was in the movie. This is kind of the big three for this movie, the three main characters, of course, along with Paulie and Henry's wife Karen, but we'll get to her in a minute. After Henry gets pinched, he's crying because he thought he let Jimmy down. Jimmy says, "No, you didn't let me down. You didn't tell him nothing, and they got nothing." And he tells him, "You learned two most important lessons: never rat on your friends, and always keep your mouth shut." Fast forward to 1963, Henry's grown now. You see, got the clothes, slick back hair. He's a veteran in the gangster lifestyle. That brings us to one of the most iconic scenes in cinematic history. Joe Pesci's character, Tommy DeVito, is telling a story, and Henry Hill responds, "Say, you're a funny guy." Like, what do you mean funny? Funny how? Well, Anthony, he's a big boy. He can answer. But you're just funny. Funny how? Funny like I'm a clown. I amuse you. I make you laugh. I'm gonna fucking amuse you. What do you mean funny? Funny how? How am I funny? You said I'm funny. What the fuck is so funny about me? Tell me what's funny. And Henry realized Tommy's just busting his balls, and they all bust out in laughter. She really ought to give him this fake ass forced laugh and smile. Yeah, the funny how is one of the most iconic lines and probably the most iconic line from this movie. Another one of my favorite scenes. It's a little quick scene. No, Henry says the famous line: "Business bad, fuck you, pay me. Place caught on fire, fuck you, pay me. Got hit by lightning, huh? Fuck you, pay me." That line been referenced and quoted throughout hip hop for decades. Well, fuck you, pay me. A later scene in the car, Tommy and Henry are talking, and Tommy saying, he's been trying to bang this Jew broad for like a fucking month. And Henry already knows what's up, and he says no, and that Tommy, come on, Henry, I need this favor. Tommy wants Henry to go on a double date so he can hook up with this girl, but Henry has no interest. But he does owe Tommy a favor, so he does it anyway. That introduces us to Karen, played by Lorraine Bracco. And Henry, as you can tell, is not interested in her whatsoever. He was only doing this for the favor of his friend, and Karen's very annoyed at Henry's disrespect and ignoring her. And she brings her crazy ass down to this mob neighborhood and confronts her for standing her up on a date. We had a double date. Who do you think you are, standing me up? What kind of man does that to a woman? All this typical nonsense. And Henry begins to take a liking to her, and they end up getting married. A later day, again, another one of the most iconic scenes from the movie. And on their date night at the Copacabana, Henry takes Karen. At this point in the movie, they're still dating. Henry takes Karen through the back door into the back kitchen, and we get this long shot of Henry and Karen making their way to the waiting room inside the restaurant. And the guy who owns the restaurant is able to get them a table early while everybody else is waiting. How come he got to get a table early? Just sit the fuck down and be patient. And Karen gets suspicious, asks Henry, what does he do? And Henry responds, construction. I think Karen, at this point, is hip to the bullshit. At this point in the movie, they were married. Now, this is one of my favorite scenes, just because I thought it was very funny. At this point in the scene, they are married. Henry and Karen are married. And, Karen's mother's confronting Henry because Henry's always out. Every night, I was out with the guys at the Copacabana, or they're handling business, and Karen's at home by herself with her parents. Well, not by herself, but she's at home with her parents. And Karen's mother says, where have you been? What kind of husband doesn't call and just goes out and stays out all night? And Henry's not feeling the bullshit, just walks away. And Karen yells at her, Ma! I thought it was funny. That brings this scene. June 11, 1970, Queens, New York. They're at the Sweet Lounge, Henry's restaurant in Queens. That leads us to the infamous Billy Bats beatdown scene. Billy Bats is a made guy who's an affiliate, I believe, with the Gambino crew, if I remember correctly. Again, all these people were real. You can look them up. Billy Bats got out of prison. They're throwing a party for him coming out of the joint, as they like to put it. And he starts busting Tommy's balls about being a shoe shiner. Tommy's to shine shoes, and Tommy doesn't like that because he's there with a new girl, and he's trying to, Billy's kind of embarrassing him in his mind. After a little mini confrontation, they decide to settle things down, but Billy decides to keep poking the bear because Billy Bats was a made man. In the mafia, look, I'm not no mafia expert. Obviously, I'm not in the mob. They wouldn't let no moolie in the mob. Just playing. But a made man, if I remember correctly, a made man can't be touched. Unless you got the permission from his boss. But anyway, Billy feels really safe, so he decides to antagonize Tommy some more, and says, go home and get your fucking shine box. And Tommy snaps, you motherfucking mutt, you fucking piece of shit, you fake old tough guy. He's just cussing, going off. Henry trying to get him up out of there, like, Tommy, calm down. Tommy, calm down. And Jimmy and Henry doing their best to try to keep the situation cool, get from getting out of hand. And Jimmy agrees to buy everybody a drink and let bygones be bygones. But of course, that's not what happens. Jimmy gets Billy Bats drunk. Billy Bats drunk, and Tommy arrives back, and they jump Billy Bats, throw him to the fucking floor. They pissed. Tommy's pistol whipping him. Jimmy's kicking him, stomping on him. They're just beating him like a dog. And they take his bloody, unconscious body, they wrap it up, and they put him in a trunk because they thought they had killed him. And that brings back to the beginning of the movie where they hear the thudding. They go back in there. Tommy's stabbing him. Jimmy shoots him, and they bury him. The later scene, these guys are at this bar playing cards, and this young kid, Spider, much like Henry, he's a young kid. He looks up to the mob guys. He wants to hang around with them, serve them drinks, do whatever. He's bringing over drinks, and he forgets to bring Tommy a drink. Tommy scolds him for, go give me a fucking drink. Move it, you little prick. You walk, everybody else you run for. Run for me. Dance the fucking drink back, you little prick. Tommy goes crazy. He pulls out his gun. He starts firing bullets. He ends up hitting Spider in the foot. Spider falls to the ground. A few minutes later, you get back and see Spider's in the cast now, and Tommy's giving him a hard time about it. Spider, you sweetheart, you're looking for sympathy, aren't you, sweetie? You fucking bullshit of you. And Spider has enough of Tommy's bullshit, and he tells him to go fuck himself. And everybody just goes, whoa, oh my God. And Jimmy Conway gives Spider 20. Hey, Spider, this is for you, attaboy. Don't take no shit from nobody. Tommy's sitting there quiet, you know. What Lil Wayne say, real G's moving sounds like lasagna. So they're quiet, they're giving Tommy a hard time, like, you gonna let this fucking punk get away with that? What's the world coming to? And then Tommy pulls out a gun and he shoots Spider and ends up killing him. And Jimmy Conway scolds him, what's the fucking matter? Are you stupid or what? You sick maniac? We're just fucking kidding when you go shoot the guy. He orders Tommy to bury the body by himself with no help. Later, Karen's there with her and Henry's two daughters. They're confronting Henry's side chick. Henry had been having an affair for a while now at this point in the movie. And she's confronting Janet Rossi. He's like, get your own goddamn man. You leave my family alone, you whore. And, of course, Karen, she's crying. She's got the gun pointed at Henry's face, confronting about the cheating. So she's going to kill him. But, of course, Henry is able to talk off the ledge, proverbially speaking. Once her guard's lowered, Henry smacks the gun away and slaps Karen on the ground. He cussing her out. I already got worried about getting whacked on the fucking street, and I got to go home to this. I should fucking kill you for this, Karen. Later on, Paulie and Jimmy are at Janet's apartment. They're telling Henry, you got to go back to her. You got to go back. And I'm not saying you got to go back this minute, but you got to go back to her. You got to go back. You go back, and of course, Henry does. In this scene right here, this is a rather pivotal scene. Now, after this point, Henry had served 4 years in jail. Paulie had went to jail, as did Jimmy, but they got out. And Paulie says, nobody mess around with drugs. And if anybody's messing around with drugs, including Jimmy or Tommy, Henry should tell them. And he smacks Henry to reassure him. That means anybody. Got it? And Henry says, yeah, I got it. But, of course, Henry goes against Paulie's word. Because he sell cocaine. He gets his coke from Pittsburgh, from guys in Pittsburgh. And, of course, he brings Tommy and Jimmy in on it so they all get their cut. In this scene right here, Jimmy is telling Henry that Tommy's about to become a made man. And Tommy getting made is like all of them becoming made men in a way. And at this point in this movie, they're about to pull off, I believe, what was it called? The Lufthansa heist? If I remember correctly. It's this big heist, one of the biggest heists in American history, and everybody's in on it, including Samuel L. Jackson, who's playing a brother named Stax Edwards. Henry's in the shower, and he hears on the radio about the heist and how nobody knows what happened, and he starts yelling, Jimmy! Jimmy! Cheering, happy. But Jimmy gets a little paranoid once these idiots start spending their money on cars and expensive cars and coats and all types of stuff. He gets a little paranoid, so he starts to kill off everybody who was involved with the heist, including Maury and this cat right here. Well, you can't really see him because I don't think I can show their full dead bodies on the YouTube would let me, but this little snippet right here. You see this guy, and I think this hooker, or whatever she was, his wife, girlfriend, what the fuck she was, and their dead corpses in the car. You see some more in the dumpster truck. I don't know if you see the guy's face up at the top. Another pivotal scene, Tommy's going to a ceremony. He thinks he's about to become a made man, and say he gets killed. And we hear Ray Liotta say it was revenge for Billy Bats. Like, nobody knows exactly if it was for Billy Bats or not, but let's just go with that. It was revenge for Billy Bats, among other things. Jimmy receives the news. He's emotional about it, of course, and Henry's distraught that their guy Tommy had gotten killed. Here, Henry gets pinched by the police. And the police are at their house knocking on the door. And Karen panics. She cuts up all the cocaine out of the bag, starts to flush it down the toilet. And Henry's scolding her about, like, Karen, we needed that. They were never going to find that stuff, Karen. Of course they were. No, Karen, we needed that. And Karen and Henry have an emotional mental breakdown because they realize they're screwed royally. So Henry tries to go to Paulie, and Paulie scolds him about treating him like a jerk, and I told you not to, and you turned your back. You want to get your word. You treat me like a jerk. But Paulie sees that Henry's very desperate, having a soft spot for Henry. He starts giving him some money. He says, now I got to turn my back on you. Jimmy does the same thing. Karen does the same thing. She goes to Jimmy for help. Jimmy gives her some money. Karen's walking down the alleyway. Jimmy's telling her to go into this dark room. Karen, assuming the worst, thinking she's going to get killed, decides to turn away, get back in her car, and go back home. Another crucial scene towards the end of the movie. Jimmy's telling Henry to go down to do a hit. And Henry assuming, and Ray Liotta narrating saying, I knew if I had gone on that plane and gone, I wasn't going to come back. I was the one getting whacked. So he and Karen decided to go into the witness protection, and Henry, and we saw at the beginning of the movie, Jimmy Conway told him, never rat on your friends and always keep your mouth shut. Henry, after making a series of pivotal mistakes, he does exactly that. He turns state's evidence, and he rats on Jimmy and Paulie. Paulie was kind of like a father figure to him. Jimmy was kind of like a big brother figure to him. They both get turned in by Henry. Obviously, they were very pissed. Ray Liotta breaks the fourth wall. He tells everybody, we paid off cops, we paid off judges, we paid off everybody, and now it's over. I can do the rest of my life as a nobody, regular schnook. Some rock music plays, and we see some information. Henry Hill is still in witness protection program. In 1987, he was arrested in Seattle for narcotics conspiracy. He received 5 years probation. Since 1987, he's been clean. Henry Hill died in 2012, if I remember correctly. Paulie Cicero, in the movie, was Paulie Cicero, again, his real life name is Paulie Vario, died in 1988 in Fort Worth Federal Prison of respiratory illness. He was 73. Jimmy Conway is currently serving a 20 years to life sentence for murder in a New York State prison. He will not be eligible for parole until 2004. He'll be 78 years old. Jimmy Conway, or in real life name was Jimmy Burke, Jimmy the Gent, I believe he died in 1996 in real life. Let me say rest in peace to Ray Liotta and rest in peace to Paul Sorvino. Like I said, GoodFellas is one of the absolute greatest movies of all time. Again, if you've never seen it, highly recommend it. Of course, I didn't go through the whole movie. I just went through some of my favorite scenes. Again, watch the whole movie. Do some research on these guys. Again, these were real people. So you want to find out some more information as much as you can. But like I said, I enjoy this movie a whole heck of a lot. Guys, tell me, is this your favorite movie of all time? Is it top 5? Is it your top 10, top 15? You know, again, I really got to do a list of my top 10 favorite films of all time. You know, this movie's for the most part in my top 10. But where it ranks in my top 10, it always changes. But like I said, great movie and great performances from everybody. De Niro, Liotta, Pesci. Of course, Joe Pesci, like I said, he won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. I guess you could make a case Robert De Niro should have got one. You could make a case Ray Liotta should have got one. Lorraine Bracco could have got one. At least a nomination. Yeah, it is what it is. Scorsese, I believe, was nominated for Best Director. He didn't win one. Probably should have. Again, this is a great film. Again, tell me what you guys think in the comments section down below. Don't forget to click like and subscribe. Young Brother Growing